With March town meeting now less than a month away, and town warnings, town budgets, and school district budgets now finalized, GNAT-TV will be profiling most, if not all, of the 11 towns in our coverage area. We're going to attempt to highlight the major articles or pieces of information voters may want to know about before they, virtually this year, attend online information meetings or vote by mail, as may be the case for many this pandemic year. In one of its first acts of the new legislative session that began in early January, the state legislature passed Act 48, which allows local legislative bodies to require municipal clerks to mail 2021 annual meeting early voter absentee Australian ballots to all active registered municipal voters to encourage absentee voting. It also allows municipalities to postpone their 2021 annual meeting to a later date. So far, both Winhall and Weston have opted to postpone their meetings until later this spring. Winhall plans to hold theirs on April 27th, and Weston is planning to hold theirs on May 25th. Many, if not all towns, will also hold their information meeting electronically or virtually via an online meeting platform such as Zoom. In the past, these information meetings usually launch town meetings with an in-person floor meeting designed to allow residents to ask questions about the proposed town budget and other articles on the town warning. This information meeting is usually followed by voting either at the floor meeting or the following day. This year, some towns are planning to hold their information meetings at the same time as usual, but others will be holding theirs several days or a week earlier. Voters will also be able to turn in ballots in person to their town clerk's office or vote in person on Tuesday, March 2nd, the official town meeting day this year, if they so choose. But if you choose to vote by mail, remember to leave enough time for it to reach your town hall. Ballots received after voting is over on March 2nd will not be counted. We start our review of our local town meetings in Arlington, where both municipal and school district budgets and special articles will be decided by voters. To get the highlights of what will be up for discussion and decision, we turned first to the town administrator, Nick Zayas, for an explanation.
There are really 6 important articles on this beyond savings and appropriations. First up is, for the first time in recent history, Arlington is having to vote a top-line budget figure, top-line expenditure figures as part of the town meeting warning. That has to do with being on the Australian ballot. Every town's going to have to do it, but that's new to us. We actually know what the proposed spending level, what the proposed tax level is going into town meeting. And so certainly the board wants the people to vote for the budget that it proposes, and we really, really hope that this budget gives voters a lot of value. Then related to that is the disposal of the really exigently large 2020 surplus. The Arlington Highway Department had a pretty substantial surplus in 2020 because we had to dial back work. We use a lot less materials, we use less labor, and as such, the board was tasked with disposing of the surplus. So with Benedict Crossing, as a currently closed bridge, the board recommended that that the voters put $50,000 away into the bridges and structures funds for the eventual repair of Benedict Crossing. As well as that, in that same article, that we also would be saving $15,000 for the removal of hazardous trees in the right of way. That's emerald ash borer infestation that is now in Arlington is going to be particularly important in the next couple of years in South Arlington, where there are a lot of ash trees in the right of way that are going to become problems. So that's in that, and also there's savings for a new loader as one of the most important pieces of machinery in town. The failure of the town loader would be something that could cause problems in winter, could cause problems in summer. As such, we're asking the voters to potentially save $25,000 of that exigent surplus toward this. Then, beyond those 2 budget articles, are 4 articles that are set to alter the structure of town government in ways that we think are going to make the town more accountable and bring the skill level of town employees up over the long term, as well as smoothing transitions as some of our members of our elected members of town government age and decide at some point they're not going to want to do these jobs anymore, and there will be job transitions. Those 4 articles include the shift of the town clerk to an appointing position, the shift of the treasurer as well, and the delinquent tax collector. Then the 4th article is the abolition of the elected auditor position in town and replacing them with a hired CPA. Those 4 articles we're seeing as a package to alter the town government in a way that we see is going to make officials both more accountable, but also allow the voters to know that the select board will reliably be seeking out people who have the skills necessary to do this job in an ever increasingly complex political environment with new regulations, with new standards, with the expectation that every job is done more or less completely on a computer. And so those four positions we see as, and the alteration and transition of these 4 positions from being furnished by townspeople who may or may not have the skills necessary to do the job really well, to delegating that task to the select board to find the right people who have the skills to make Arlington really awesome at financial management, at collecting of delinquent taxes, and hiring auditors who definitely know how to audit.
I'm surprised by the appointing a town clerk when that's kind of unusual, isn't it? I can't think of a single town around here that appoints a town clerk. Usually that's a ballot item.
Certainly, the inclusion of the town clerk was done as part of these other 4, making clear that we love our town clerk. We don't want her to go anywhere, but we know that when she retires, we want to make sure that someone who's in that position can be democratically accountable in a way that unopposed elections really struggle with. That if a person does have an issue with whoever ends up in that position at some point, that they know that they have a voice other than going and running themselves to make that office better, to serve the people better, and this certainly makes no statements about the people who are currently in these positions. We think that these jobs are all done really adequately, really, really well, and we hope that this is just going to make it so that we can guarantee that there's a means other than elections other than elections for the particular position, that you can make clear that your opinion on how these offices are run.
How does the tax rate that you're anticipating the budget will require, and how does that compare to last year? Is it roughly about the same, or is there a slight increase or decrease?
With the 2020 surplus from the highway department, we're looking at a year-on-year increase of 1.5% right now. In this budget, we are really, really happy with it being 1.5%. If the voters choose not to appropriate the highway surplus from last year to the proposed matters in Article 4, then that number will be even higher. But under the explicit, very, very clear fact that this is a 1-year exigent circumstance from 2020 thing, that if that article is not approved and taxes do actually drop this year, which they could if that article is not approved, then they will have to rise to cover expenses the following year commiserately. So that this is really just shifting taxes from the next budget year to this year. But in doing that, we're looking at less than a 2% tax increase, which I know is less than what I thought when I talked to you before.
After this discussion was recorded, the Arlington Select Board met one more time to finalize the warning and decided to eliminate the 2 articles pertaining to the appointment of the town clerk and delinquent tax collector. The 2 remaining articles relate to the appointment of the treasurer and hiring of work currently done by the town auditors. Then we touched base with School Superintendent William Basic, who gave us the rundown on the Arlington School District's budget proposal.
Let's start with the most important thing and talk about the students. There is some very good news that the proposed budget has no cuts at all. We were able to do what we call in the business a pushover budget. So it has all the same great program the Arlington schools have right now, all staff, all enrichment programs. Everything will stay the same as this year, which is good because we were a little worried that we would have to cut some of our budget down in order to recover from the COVID pandemic crisis financially, if you will. That did not occur, so we were able to do a pushover budget. We did realize some cost savings that we implemented last year that came back to help us a little bit this year. So the budget we're presenting is actually lower than the previous year's budget by 0.49%. Not a whole lot lower, but about 0.5% lower, which is always nice, and especially in this economy. So we tightened the belt a little bit and we pushed that over. Generally we do talk about tax rates more than we talk about percentages of our budgets, and that is what I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Is for the taxpayers of Arlington, they're going to have a 4.5 cents tax increase, even though we had a 0.5 decrease in our spending. And the reason for that is pretty simple to explain. It comes by two things. One, there's a mechanism from the state legislature called the property yield. It's a way that they set a tax rate universal throughout the state to kind of get monies back. And that was set lower this year, which actually means if it's set lower, you actually have to pay more as a town. I know it's very confusing. And so 2 cents went directly from the state and the way that they set up that property yield. The second factor to get the other 2.5 cents was there's a common level of appraisal, which looks at the values that the house is selling in Arlington. And over the last couple of years, Arlington's become a very attractive place. We've had many people coming in and buying homes, which obviously drives up the price of homes. So that's a real boom for you if you're looking to maybe put a line of credit on your home or certainly sell your home values are going up. But as your home values go up, the CLA mechanism, which goes down as home values go up, appraises the house is higher and you have to pay more tax. So that other 2.5 cents is coming just because home values are going up, nothing to do with school spending or the budget that we presented.
Can I just stop there for a quick second and just ask, does that mean that Arlington would need to do a reassessment of its property in order to get the common level of appraisal closer to or at what, 100%?
No, the mechanism to do a reappraisal if it goes above 80 or above 120. So as long as it stays within that range, there's no reason to do a reappraisal. So they go up and down every year. I think Arlington is up for a reappraisal in a year or two. There is a mandate. I'm not sure what it is, but a state mandate that every so many years you have to do a reassessment. But the only thing that triggers a assessment would be if it went above 120 or below 80.
Okay, and you're nowhere close to that at this point.
No, that would be very rare. I mean, that would be just a huge swing in the economy. And the actual CLA, I know that there's a lot of new interest living here in Vermont, and that home prices in the last 6 months have really skyrocketed. But it's really done over a 4-year average, so it's not we will feel the tax implications of the pandemic because the house values have gone up tremendously in Arlington in the last 6-7 months, but that is still factored in over a 4-year period. Besides that, we're hopeful people that will come on. I mean, a 4.5 cent tax increase is not great, but it's generally something that's pretty good. And if we look at our 5-year trend, it falls right into where we need to be. The reason it also is a 4.5 cent tax increase is because last year, after the town voted on their budget, the legislator can come back as far as June and reset the tax rate. And they actually did come back last June and reset the tax rate, which was 2 cents lower than what we anticipated as a school system last year. So certainly in the past, and it doesn't feel good, but the taxpayers of Arlington got a tax break, if you will, last year by 2 cents. And what the AOE giveth, the AOE take back, and so this year we're up a little, we're about 4 cents, but we're right. We have a 5-year trend that usually, our tax rate is usually around $1.52. This will be $1.54 So it stays right in that range, and when we're pretty good. We're pretty good where we are. If we could look at a 5-year trend, it's right in line.
When it comes to candidates who are running for public office in Arlington, Select Board incumbent Dan Harvey is running for re-election to his 2-year seat on the board. Current board member Tim Williams has chosen not to run for re-election. Glenn Sherman has submitted a consent form for that 3-year seat and currently has no opposition. On the Arlington School Board, there are 2 seats up for election, with Board Chairman Todd Wilkins running unopposed for his 3-year seat. The 2-year seat on the board will have a race between Jeff Tilley and Dan Wood. All other races will be unopposed. The information meeting for Arlington's voters will start at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, March 1st. Connection information for those who plan to attend it remotely is posted on the town's website. The polls will be open at the American Legion Post number 69 on Tuesday, March 2nd, starting at 10 a.m. and will close at 7 p.m. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.